are live. Hopefully it's our third time that we have announced that we are live. So not sure if that's the first time for you guys or just the third time for us. And thank you, Raquel, for telling us on the Discord channel. So in case you missed it, we are the Semi-Sages of the Pages. It is 6 p.m. here in California on Sunday, and we have rocked this convention. And you can tell because we're tired.
And there's cats.
Yeah, there's a cat. Yes, we've got Fluffy here with us.
So there's Fluffy. Are we going to introduce ourselves?
Yes, we could.
I'm Morgan. Hi.
Morgan, do you want to give like a little bit more since these aren't our normal listeners?
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm Morgan, and I'm lucky enough to be on this wonderful podcast, Semi-Sages of the Pages, with all four of us that write spec fic, and we bring a bi-weekly podcast about writing. We have a community on Discord, and I write spec fic, and I also write middle grade historic fiction and contemporary. Oh, and I'm horse trainer.
And you did a lot of wonderful panels on this convention about horses too. So I'm going to point my finger at Molly. Molly, you go.
Hi guys. So my name is Molly. You've probably seen me all around this convention, but talking about fighting because I'm a martial artist, podcasting because this is a podcast, and also writing because I am a writer. I write speculative fiction, usually in the young adult genre, and then I am going to point my finger at Sarah.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Faxman. I am, again, one of the proud members of the Semi-Sages of the Pages. I am currently the president of the San Diego Writers and Editors Guild, and I am also an author. I have written Animal Court, which is a political fantasy, Foreign and Domestic Affairs, which is her sequel, and Teresa and I have co-written a book called Lost Aboard, which is a creative nonfiction book about the ghosts aboard Star of India, a famous tall ship here in San Diego. And I have another book coming out called Tiny Dreadfuls, which is a collection of horror short stories.
All right, and I think that takes it to me. So my name is Teresa Halverson, also one of the Semi-Sages of the Pages. I'm also a spec fiction writer. I'm sensing a theme here. And my first novel, Warehouse Dreams, came out in July of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. So that was fun. I also have River City Widows that is coming out April 21st. That's a paranormal romance. And I've, did a lot of sessions this week about sizzle and romance and all that fun stuff. So we're here to talk about podcasting success. And so I thought I'd go ahead and start it off by asking the other Semi-Sages, as we're talking about like what's going to make this podcast successful. I want to have a podcast. What is it that they should be thinking about as they ask themselves that question?
I know, like when we started having a podcast, this was a conversation that we had a lot, and it's easy to think about. The first thing that comes to mind is, well, how do we know we're successful? Well, how many listeners are we going to have? We want people to listen to us. We want to have a community to engage with. We want to build our profiles. We want to, that kind of stuff. But then when you start getting into the weeds of it and you get past that, there's so much else there's so many other goals that you can have by starting a podcast. And one of the goals that I'm going to mention, and then I'm going to let these other wonderful ladies talk about some of the other stuff we talked about, was I really love getting to have these discourse moments with you guys, and we get into these really deep dive conversations sometimes, and they're conversations that I can't just have with a random person. I can't have with my random non-writer friends, and we get into hour-long conversations where we just talk about what's the balance in dialogue versus description in your piece of work, and we'll talk for a whole hour on it. We'll talk for a whole hour on, writing sex scenes. We'll really get to deep dive, and I learn a lot by talking through these items with, my friends. And that's a great goal for me in personal growth. So I'll let somebody else talk about one of the other. Oh, Morgan wants it.
I want to riff off that, Molly. So in the Discord, they said, tell us your secrets. And I think that one of the gems that we uncovered early was when we were talking about what makes a great scene. And we would talk about how we kind of uncovered, back to the discovery, digging, but we uncovered that in any scene, obviously, you need to be doing more than one thing. You need to be pushing the plot, you need to have tension, you need to be developing character. And the more things you're able to accomplish in just one scene, the better the writing is, the tighter it is, and the more it pushes your novel. And I think that that's true about podcasting. I feel like our best episodes and our most meaningful connections come when we are going for more than one thing with the episode. So we've talked about it, and it's maybe something we're personally grappling with, and Molly listed some examples there. Because I feel at the end of it, I'm always so excited from what I learned, but then it naturally meets the other metrics. It naturally gets more listens. It naturally gets more excited, people excited because I think we're excited. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's really been an interesting offshoot, because when we talked about doing this podcast, and I've said this before, we met at a writers conference, at the La Jolla Writers Conference, and we're sitting there having dinner, and then meeting again and again and again. And I think Molly was like, we should do a podcast, and I'm like, yeah, sure. And I never thought it was going to happen. Did not think it was going to happen. And I think when we sat down and we were like, all right, what is it that we're trying to accomplish here? A lot of it was around education and community. And yes, wanting to get listeners was such a huge part of that. But really and truly, our big goal was to help writers like us that aren't the Stephen Kings and the James Pattersons and the J.K. Rowlings, to help the writers when we're first starting out, learn the craft, talk about the craft, talk about marketing, and have our listeners learn with us. That's another thing that we're very honest about the podcast. We had a wonderful, wonderful episode about how bruising querying is, because we're in the trenches. We're in the trenches with you guys. And so we wanted to share that journey with you. So that was another one of our goals.
I think a really great way we've sort of measured our success is seeing the outpour of love and support from our listeners, and that I'm going through the same thing. Oh my gosh, that happened to me. Oh my gosh, I'm hitting that exact same spot. And I think for us, the sort of overlying theme of all of this is the community that we've built. Because it's one thing to have 10,000 listeners. It's another thing to have 10 really loyal, engaged listeners who are constantly going back and forth with us. Like we were all talking about, the Discord channel is where we hang out, and it's phenomenal. We have such a great community of listeners and fellow writers who are constantly going back and forth, and not just asking us questions, but asking the community of our Semi-Sage group questions and engaging with each other. And I think that for us has been one of the largest measures of our success, is seeing that, we're all learning and growing together as our little Semi-Sage group here, but it's going beyond us, and that other people are connecting with our stories. And that's one of the greatest things any author can ask for, is that somebody's identifying with our stories. And we're extremely transparent. Like Teresa was saying, I mean, we've talked about so many issues. I mean, Molly and I were brought to tears in one of our last episodes.
That's actually next week's episode that I get to publish. You get to hear Sarah and I both cry.
And I don't do that very often for others to see. I'm a very private person when it comes to being that emotional, but that's the rawness we hit. And I think those are some of our best episodes, when we are transparent, where it's like, you know what, I got stuck there too, or I can't get past this. And so that, I think, for us is, we're getting such great fulfillment out of our discussions, out of our conversations, but then seeing our conversations grow on our Discord channel among our listeners, that is the ultimate success.
And motivation.
And motivation.
And motivation. I wanted to mention something because, sorry, Morgan, because you might not be our normal listeners. We call ourselves the Semi-Sages. And that is because we're not experts. We're not experts.
Yeah.
We're the semi-sages. And the other thing is our tagline is we're not sure where we're going, but we're on an adventure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we want to do. We want to bring people along on the adventure with us, because we've gotten writing advice from people who are, so far ahead sometimes, and then sometimes the advice they give just doesn't connect.
Mm.
And that can be difficult sometimes.
Yeah, it's really disheartening and wonderful to hear from writers that will, talk about their books being optioned or a TV show or whatnot. We're not at that level.
Good person. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not at that level. No.
And maybe someday, but not
But we're
today.
Yeah, hopefully one day.
I want to roll back to the motivation piece, because I want to mention that just this weekend on the Discord, I think that motivation goes both ways. So our group, our community, our Resolution Warrior group specifically, is pushing us to keep going. And so a great example is how many times people have talked about rejection points at Flights of Foundry, and counting up our rejection points. And one of the most amazing writers who also is active on our Discord has a little board of her rejection goals for this month. And it just totally inspires me and pushes me. And I'm like, I need to be there. I need to be doing that. And I think a big part of podcasting success is it motivating you to become better? Are you constantly motivated to push yourself to the next level and set new goals? Because if your goals aren't pushing you forward, if you're getting, just accepting what you have, then I think that's, you're plateauing, and I think you're not growing as a person. And I think that's where burnout a lot of times comes from. And so I just wanted to shout out to Resolution Warriors and the way they keep us motivated.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the Resolution Warriors?
So Resolution Warriors started in 2021, because obviously 2020 was, so we decided we wanted to inspire each other to write. So the first day of every month we get on and we put our goals out there, and my experience is most of us don't hit them. In fact, I think hardly.
We set aggressive goals is the problem. We aim too high.
We do. But it's so cool, and we inspire each other, and we always do something, and we're always honest, and we hold each other accountable, and you're seeing what your friends are doing, and you're realizing, and this is the thing about motivation with podcasting and with writing, you think, oh, I haven't written for a week, and you actually look at your accountability and it's more like 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's so interesting about podcasting. So for me, measuring success also is, are we hitting our targets bi-weekly? Are we releasing on time? Are we just that alone, I think, is a success to celebrate. If you say you're going to release every 2 weeks and you're releasing every 2 weeks, for me, you're successful. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point there about, again, setting those goals and setting obtainable goals. When you're thinking about, I kind of want to do a podcast, before you record your first episode, think this through. Think about, do I want to publish weekly, daily? No, I don't recommend that. Monthly. What is it? And I can tell you, we were doing bi-weekly, so every 2-week episodes, and then we were doing these little semi-sodes, these little ones that each of us would do. We ended up dropping it because it was just so much work for a little 7-minute episode. And we may end up bringing them back again in another iteration, because our fans really did like them. But we weren't meeting our goals, and we were causing a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety for ourselves as well. So for us, saying that wasn't working was a success as well, rather than allowing us to burn out.
I think it's also important, really quick. A lot of podcasts fizzle out after a few months. Did we look up this exact metric, or did we forget to look this one up? Let's see if Teresa can do some fast Google, fast fingers while I stall.
We did. We did look it up, but I don't think we saved it in a place where I can find it. Don't mind me.
But you could look it up. But basically, there's some metrics that when you look at podcasting and people who start them, they fizzle out really quickly. The fact that you can go for a year, if you make it for a year, you're made it. You've established.
Mhm.
And I really think it's important, as Teresa kind of touched on, really set a solid goal that says, I'm going to publish this often. And maybe it's bi-weekly, maybe it's monthly, maybe it's whatever. And maybe sometimes you don't meet it. Like we took a little Christmas break, things like that. That's fine. But if you don't set a solid goal for doing it, or you don't have an impetus to do it, or whatever it is, it's not going to get done.
Mhm.
You're not going to do it.
I think another thing too to kind of roll off of that is, so you first set your goals, how many times a year, month, whatever, you're going to do it. And then before you're just like, I'm gonna do a podcast, make sure you have a niche topic that you're going to talk about, or at least an identifiable brand that goes across all of your episodes. I mean, you could just sit there and sort of do your video, or not your video, your audio blog or your audio diary of sorts, but it's good to have some sort of goal or theme to talk about as you're doing a podcast. A lot of the podcasts that kind of fizzle out are the ones that don't have some sort of theme or recurring theme or something that their listeners know, oh, this is what I go to for that thing. And so that's another good way to set goals for yourself and to measure your successes. Am I staying true to my theme? And if you need to adapt, that's cool. That's totally fine. But that's one thing you can kind of measure as you go along, is how true am I going to this theme? How many people are paying attention to this theme? And poll your listeners to see if that's what they want to hear about from you. And you can kind of grow and adapt as you go along and try to figure it out, what works.
I wanted to bring up a really quick comment in the Discord from Sean talking about pod fade. And he went and said that lots of things can cause it. And he is very, very right. So he's talking about burnout, feeling like you're screaming. I think he's meaning screaming into the void. Very true. Very true. And can be kind of demoralizing when you're like, is anyone listening to me? And we'll talk a little bit later about like the actual metrics that you get. Or maybe this is a good transition to the actual metrics that you get. So you get actual metrics. You can get metrics from your podcast hosting service. So a site like Buzzsprout, there's all sorts of ones. Buzzsprout is just the largest. So you can get them, you can look at them, but those metrics don't tell you the whole story. So they can tell you downloads. They don't always tell you listens. They don't tell you how long someone listens for all the time. Different sites will tell you different things. Teresa?
What's the difference between listens and downloads, Molly?
This is not my specialty. I think it means like you actually like listen, like it's how you listen to the episode.
It is, yeah.
It's how you listen to the episode. But so it doesn't capture, sometimes the metrics don't capture everything, or like we, for example, start putting stuff on YouTube because it's another way to connect with people, especially in the pandemic. Podcast listening is down. It's still down in the pandemic. It's recovered a little bit, but it's still down. And more people are connecting with stuff on YouTube, especially their home. They have their maybe personal laptop up. They're watching YouTube. So we're like, all right, we don't have a lot of people there, but we figure that's a way to kind of get people around. What else am I missing about like what kind of metrics that you get?
I want to talk about the metrics you gave us at the very beginning when I didn't know it, because remember, I was the one who's afraid to do podcasting, right? This was really scary for me. I do not like my voice. Molly had to keep saying, you're okay, you're okay. This is not something that I ever thought I would do. I was like, Teresa, I'll agree to this. It won't happen. It'll be fine.
I'm like Molly. I felt like Molly was like holding our hands and being like, we're going on a podcasting adventure.
I said, hey guys, what do you think? And everyone was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, okay.
Yes. And I remember just being like, and then she's like, if we get 36 listens our first time, that's really good. And I was like, okay, only 36 people.
So
And
those
most of them are
statistics,
gonna be-
go ahead.
Yeah, no, and most of them are going to be my family. And then she said, this is the other way she convinced me. She said, we won't really hit it big until like 2 years in, when we've had lots of practice and we're relaxed. And then we went that first day and we had so much fun and we laughed. And I was like, oh, I have to hang out with my friends, so I guess I'll do the podcast, right? But that helped me so much in the True 70 too. But that helped me so much just thinking 36 is a success. I can handle 36.
So kind of to that the 36 number, I actually have stats for that one. I did want to kind of talk about that. So this one is stats from Buzzsprout. So the way that they look at this article is it's the downloads, and it's a number of downloads you get within 7 days of release. Okay, so if you get more than 26 downloads of a single episode within 7 days of release, you're in the top 50% of podcasts. I know. If you get more than 72 downloads, you're in the top 25%. More than 231, you're in the top 10%. More than 539, you're in the top 5%. And more than 3,062, you're in the top 1% of podcasts. So that's where that number of like 36 came from, which, 26 downloads, that's not really that much, but that kind of tells you how many podcasts out there that aren't getting that many downloads. Yeah. So
and it's hard sometimes. Like you think, well, I can get 26 people. I can do this. I know 26 people. I can guilt some family and friends. And honestly, it's sort of true. So definitely for us, like we had no problem guilting people for especially our first couple episodes. You can guilt so many people, and I mean like actual buzz too, and get like real people who are actually interested in what you're producing. But then you just like say, "Hey, mom, listen to this," and you can guilt quite a few people, but it's the sustainment that matters. You might guilt 25 of your friends, but your friends might not be interested in writing.
Right.
So it's really important to consider that your audience, we're a fairly niche podcast, and it's not going to interest everyone. And that's okay. That's okay.
yeah, absolutely. So again, this goes back to what your goals are. You're running a podcast, so you do want some listeners. Otherwise, just, like us, if all of a sudden we were like, hey, we're not getting any downloads at all, well, then it's time for us to retire Semi-Sages and just hang out as friends, which that would work too.
And we just continue carrying on our conversations without recording. It'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. It would be awesome. We could add alcohol to it.
Wait.
Don't already do that?
We record at like 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. I don't know about you, but that's too early for me.
No. I just remember. So for those that you're not familiar, we went on a retreat one weekend. We decided to go on a retreat, and it was somewhat a nightmare.
It was true. It was an adventure.
It was an adventure. It started really scary, and then switched. And there was a lot of alcohol. We all brought a lot of alcohol and then drank very little of it.
We wanted everyone to have choices.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
continue.
anyways, so my point
that
is,
speaks to courage. I think that speaks to just getting it done.
yeah, absolutely. But, kind of back to setting your goals and everything else. If your goal is to let's address the elephant in the room. Your goal is to make $1 billion doing this. If that's the case, and I'm okay, $1 billion is kind of shooting a little too high. What you do with your podcast needs to be a little bit different. You need to go ahead and do some research, do some target demographics. What is your podcast about, and who is it targeted to? And then you need to start doing marketing around that. So you're probably going to need to pay for Facebook ads, I was going to say Amazon ads, but that's not right. Exactly. You want to find out where your listeners are. So if you've got a video game podcast, everybody on video games is hanging out on Discord. I don't know if Discord does ads, but maybe you'd want to look at Discord ads.
Or Twitch.
Or Twitch, thank you. Or TikTok. that may be a good place for you to hang out as well. So
Or
again,
Reddit.
or Reddit. Yep. So again, this is about setting your goals and then putting the planning in place to meet those goals. And I'll be totally honest, and this was Morgan had a wonderful podcasting panel earlier in the convention, and one of the panelists on there said, a podcast making money is a golden ticket. So if that is your goal, be aware it's a golden ticket.
And just to be clear, you can actually get like affiliates and sponsorships for your podcast quite easily. We have chosen not to actually, but you can sign up. It's actually quite easy to do so for many of the places, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you make any money or any money of substance. Because a lot of those rely on, oh, you tell your listeners to click on this thing and put in the code and then you get a kickback. Well, if you have 25 listeners and your conversion rate is whatever, 1 out of 25, I don't know what that kickback is, but you're not going to make like substantial money on it. Just thoughts on like, well, how do you actually make money in a podcast? And that's one way.
Can we talk about in the chat? Sarah, are you going to read it?
Yeah.
In the chat. Do you guys see it? There's a question. What was the best way you found to get people to notice your podcast? Marketing is always the struggle and it's expensive. And let's kind of pick up with that.
So I'd like to start by saying this. Appearing at conferences, giving speeches, and just being our true selves. That has been our number one ticket of marketing and getting ourselves out there. And that's the key, getting ourselves out there. And because it's been 2020 and we've all been in this weird pandemic thing, this is how we've been able to get across. All 4 of us are in completely different areas right now, but we're able to come together and talk to all of you from the comfort of our home and stream across the world. So appearing at these sorts of conferences, at any kind of speaking opportunity you can get, that is a phenomenal way to market yourself. Another thing too, marketing is expensive. Marketing can be expensive, but there are ways to do it organically, which means not paying for it. And one of those great ways is joining in different discussions. Using Discord, because we're all on Discord, this is a perfect way to get yourself out there. Finding similar niche groups out there, so groups that are about your topic, and start engaging in the conversation. Don't just drop the link to your podcast, because nobody likes spammers. Get yourself in the conversation, get yourself talking to people, and then casually drop it in. Oh, I just talked about that on my podcast, and then get the conversation rolling that way. That's organic marketing. It takes a little bit of time, but that's how you're really going to connect with people. And it goes back to building your community and engaging with each other. It's slow burn, but it goes back to what Molly said too about having people stay with you. Those are the ones that becomes your engaged audience, your loyal listeners. And the more you can put yourself out there, the more people will connect with you. The more human you are, the more people will connect with you. And that's a really great way to start your marketing. But also, like Teresa was saying, find where your audience is. Do your research. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars on Facebook ads. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars on Instagram ads or whatever it is. Find your hashtag. What are people looking up that they would use to find your podcast? Start there. Find that hashtag. Where are they talking? And go to where that's most active on whatever social media platform it is and get in the conversation.
So one idea for that.
Go ahead.
No, jump in.
You sure? So one thing I kind of want to jump off of what Sarah was saying there. One of the goals of this podcast was to help us market ourselves as authors. So we do a lot of kind of like building up on our goals here. So when Warehouse Dreams came out and I was starting to be like, all right, I got to market that book, I used Semi-Sages of the Pages to get onto other podcasts and to be interviewed. And that made a huge difference. So I was able to get onto podcasts and promote not only my book, but Semi-Sages of the Pages as well. So that's another thing that you can do. And that has been invaluable to me, that I can use Semi-Sages as a resume builder.
I'm going to build off that. I didn't know this when we started, but because we have a podcast and our podcast is decently successful,
Mhm.
for what we are and everything, I might not have the professional like resume for a writer. I'm not published in certain areas or whatever, but I can use the fact that I'm a podcaster. My podcasting resume is legit.
Mhm.
It is real. I have the experience and stuff like that. And now that opens doors for me. And that was a benefit that I didn't know when I started, really. But now I can talk about podcasting, and we're going to talk later about like skills that we unintentionally gained and stuff like that. But it really can be a door opener, even because you can go to another podcast and instead of being like, hey, I published my book, which if you're an indie author, you might have trouble with that because there's a lot of indie authors, right? But now you can say, I published my book. Also, I have a podcast. This is my real podcast. Are you interested in talking to me? And I mean, I've been on one or two other podcasts. I know Teresa, you've been on a couple. Sarah, you do some stuff, cross promotion on mostly YouTube, right? Yeah. Morgan, I don't know if you've been on other stuff net, but that's okay. It's a yet. But it is
a yes.
I haven't been pushed off that cliff yet.
And we have another great comment here. Worth noting, unless you're rich, you can't compete with corporate podcasts, so don't find your niche, market to that. 100% agree.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And can I talk about, while we're talking about strategies that are free, a couple strategies that we use that I think worked really well, and you can disagree with me. We can have this or agree. I loved when I didn't even know, I didn't even know what PitMad was. Didn't even know. And the girls were like, this is it. It's amazing. Because there were so many things I hadn't learned yet, that I'm so new to this world. So we did PitMad together. We supported each other. And then we'd go back on and support other authors who we weren't, actively querying, and inviting them into our community. And they brought this wealth of knowledge, this fresh excitement. And then we held our own contest, which I dearly, dearly love, because our listeners are brilliant writers, and we showcase their writing, and then we give fun prizes and stuff. And I loved it because I love things that do multiple things. First, it refreshed us, and we got excited, and you could feel the energy return with this kind of novelty that was beautiful. Second, I think it showed that we want to learn from our community, that we love our community, and that we're truly invested in our community. And I think that they felt that authenticity. But third, it brings in brand new people that have never interacted with us. It's totally free, and it's already part of what we're doing to promote our weekly, our bi-weekly episodes. So I don't think it felt like a lot of work. But
and another thing is we like giving shout outs to other people. So when we have a competition or something like that, we oftentimes will read top submissions. We'll read the winners. We give shout outs. We say, hey, and now I can't think of, Jasmine, we really love that you joined our Discord and you made us get a bot that does sprints with us today. And, we did our sprint on our Discord and you're pushing us, and we really appreciate that. Chris, we loved your bulletin board that you posted about your rejection thing. Like we do that because it's not lip service. Like on Twitter, you often see like these, what are they called? Writer's lift. They're called a writer's lift. And people will just post the link. And then other people will just post the link. But I'm not sure that anybody like clicks on other people's links and like looks at their stuff. Everyone just posts their own stuff. And you might gain followers, but you're not necessarily building your community. And we genuinely like having writer friends. We like having writers in our community and talking with you guys. And it's not like lip service in terms of like, we don't want to just drop the link and then just like say, listen to our podcast later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think having such engaged listeners on our Discord, I mean, to me, and I mean, in these sessions, I've seen people who I've seen on the Discord that have come and watched these sessions that we've been doing this weekend that we wouldn't have met and we wouldn't have known. And to me, success right there. Reed, I'm talking about you.
Reed. Oh my gosh, Reed, yes.
And Raquel, shout out to Raquel.
Oh
And
yeah,
Raquel.
Raquel's on here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Marvelosa.
Marvelosa, yeah. And
And
Chris Banner, and yeah, all of you guys, that we've gotten to know on Discord, we wouldn't have known you without Semi-Sages of the Pages. Well, Chris Banner I knew before, but
I
we
wouldn't have.
yeah, you wouldn't have. There's no way. Yeah.
So
that's a great measurement of our success is, we started this podcast with the idea of we don't know where we're going, but we're on an adventure. Let's see who else is on an adventure with us. And we have gained so many new friends, honestly, and not just people who listen to us. We've grown this community. And for us, I think that's been such an incredible success. And especially during 2020, where we weren't sure if the podcast was going to survive because people weren't commuting anymore. I saw that in the Discord. We couldn't get together anymore. We took over a library when we could, and we recorded in person at a library. It was really a hostile takeover. So it was fantastic.
We got yelled at once or more.
I can't wait till we can do it again. We didn't know if we were going to survive. And so our goal was, let's make it through 2020. And we did. And not only that, we've continued to grow. And so those have been two goals that we set, goals that we can measure and have proven our success. And so I saw someone say, do small goals. And it's so true. Do small, attainable goals, especially when you're starting off, especially when you're getting to burnout, because that little goal setting is going to get you to the next day, to the next day, to the next day. And that's something that you can measure as you go along. Now, in terms of things that you can kind of quantify, it goes back to, looking at your listens, but then also kind of comparing that to how much engagement you're getting.
Right. Morgan?
I did a podcast with other podcasters, and shout out to Luke because he's in here and he was in there, and he's Luke Elliott's amazing.
See, you
check out his podcast.
Are doing cross-promotional stuff. You lied to us earlier.
Is incredible. He does Ink to Film podcast, very wise. And there was another podcaster in there that shout out to him also, Jonathan Stark. And he had this incredible aha moment where he said, I'm talking to the listeners right now, and I'm giving you permission to not be, to not do well, to fail, and to learn from your failures, and to understand that every time your tech goes bad and Molly has to save you, you learn how to get better at tech until pretty soon she only has to save you a few times a month. But also, I would add to that, I give you permission to have fun. I give you permission to let fun be the metric of success. I do this because it's fun. And for me, if it ever quits being fun, then it may not be the thing I do anymore, because I believe in filling up my soul and the health of my energy and my being. And I think the metrics of always having to have it be about numbers stress us out and drain our energy and keep us from being authentically there for ourselves and other people. And so I think sometimes just the focus on enjoying, getting kicked out of the library was a freaking blast. It was amazing. It was like, what a great life experience. And it was my fault, but
for reference, so we kind of gave each other like
nomenclatures,
nicknames. Morgan's was Rebel of the Library.
That was fun.
Sorry.
That was fun. So, we've only got 10 more minutes here. Do we want to kind of talk about how the podcast has developed our personal development too?
Yeah, I want to mention one quick thing. Just one quick thing. Like, this is a virtual convention, which I know is stressful for a lot of people. It is not really that stressful for us on a tech side.
Right.
Because at this point, we had to figure it out. We've done live shows on YouTube. We've done recording on Zoom. We've done recording on Discord. We've done this we've done all of it. So when it gets to this, we don't feel like really we're even talking into the void because we know people are listening. Like we're having this connection. We can see the chat. It is fairly comfortable for us to do this, actually.
I totally want to second that because when I did my presentation last night, I had no idea what was going on, but I knew that it was 6 o'clock. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm starting now. And so I was able to just give it on out to the void and just roll with it. And I think, you know, a big part of podcasting or YouTubing or anything like this is having that sort of entertainment aspect and that, you know, the show must go on sort of feel to it. And this podcast has really helped me to kind of shake those showcase jitters, if you will, because we know that we're going to mess up. We know that we're going to misspeak. We know that something's going to go wrong. And it's like, all right, move on. And I think that has helped to instill a greater level of confidence in me in public speaking, which has been incredible. And what a phenomenal tool that podcast has instilled in me, that our podcast has instilled in me.
I want to say that, and I don't know if our viewers have caught this, but something that has come out of this is a form of body language between the four of us, because we are constantly signaling to each other which one of us wants to talk. We've had a couple of time checks, and I've seen a couple nods to each other and that type of thing. That to me is just a phenomenal sign of just teamwork and of us adapting to this virtual space. When we were in the library that we got thrown out of, we were able to kind of do like, wrap it up, you know, that type of thing. We're not able to do that anymore. You know, we would pass each other notes and that type of thing. Can't do any of that anymore. So we were able to kind of develop a language between the four of us. That wouldn't have come about, A, without the podcast, and B, without the pandemic and having to do this virtually.
Now it's just virtual notes.
Right.
Also known as texts.
Should we take any questions as we kind of move on to start putting questions in the Discord if you have any specifically, or you want to talk more about how we measure success, or maybe you want to know more about how we found each other. One of our strengths that we don't talk very much about is that we have very different strengths. I'm sure our regular listeners know this about us. We all bring a different kind of flavor and a different brand, but we actually spend a lot of time talking about what our brand is, what we bring, so that it's diverse, but it also jives. And that's not, I mean, some of it's accidental, but a lot of it is planned and discussed. Molly, go.
And one of the things that we really knew after, you know, when we were starting to get to know each other and when we started this podcast is that we work as a dynamic. Mm-hmm. We work as the four of us. We have great conversation. Like, we have an outline for this. Our episodes sometimes have outlines. They usually have a theme, and we riff, and we do well because we can explore a topic. We like doing that. We know kind of have this give and take with each other, which you can develop the dynamic with people, but you can't manufacture one. So I think it's really special, like this dynamic that we have, and the fact that we all kind of bring something different. Yeah, we've got 4 minutes left. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we had a good one. It's already kind of getting answered, and a huge thank you to Sean for answering it. But they were asking on advice for how to grow engagement. And Sarah answered it too. So Discord's been huge for us, absolutely huge. The contests, we've run 3 contests. We've run those. Those have been huge in getting engagement. Our live streams, people love those. Oh my gosh, we did a Halloween quiz one. It was a blast. And we did a Christmas quiz one too. Our listeners loved it. And we were able to get more people coming to the Discord. So I would say Discord for engagement, and then also pivoting a little bit too. We'll do some live, we'll do some recorded, we'll do quizzes, we'll do contests, all of that stuff. Molly?
Teresa's talking about this. I just want to make it explicit, one thing that we have noticed is trying to contact people in different ways. So people engage in different ways. Are they engaging on YouTube? Are they engaging on Twitter? Are they engaging Facebook? Are they on the Discord? Are they in the con? And, occasionally like switching it up and going somewhere else or pulling from a different community, advertising is, I don't like that word, but like trying to tap into a different community, making our stuff more accessible in different ways, whether it's audio only, audio and visual, putting it different places has been huge.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And one thing we talk about openly that I'm going to just say right now, the generic social media has not been the thing for us. It has, not only has it not really given us the writer lifts and stuff, the engagement we want, but you can feel it when we talk about it, that there's a level of frustration. Molly touched on this earlier, but it's the inauthenticity. It's the fakeness of it. And so we don't want to do it. And when Sean's talking about not liking marketing, I think that's part of it, because, you feel as a podcaster, I don't want to just walk out there and just say, watch my stuff. I want to actually meet people and engage them and get to know them. And I don't want anybody to feel like I'm the spammer, like Sarah said, that I'm just jumping in and doing that. And I think that holds.
Can I interest you in this Tupperware or perhaps some makeup?
But it helps that I love my friends. So one thing that helps me, because I'm pretty good at putting our podcast out there, because one thing that helps me is I'm like, oh my gosh, they'll talk about something and I can be like, Molly's totally into that, Sarah's totally into that. And it's easier for me to brag about my friends, Teresa writes romance, than it is for me to talk about myself. So that's a little hint I use, because I do a lot of talking.
I will say we don't particularly like social media. We don't always get a lot of valuable engagement, but it is valuable to have it. And it's important and valuable to have it for a lot of reasons. And one, especially it makes you seem like you're a real thing. Like people can find you, they see that you have a profile, they see that you exist, they see that you have followers, that you do stuff, and then they're like, okay, this is a real thing. This is a real podcast. So if we want to go to something like Flights of Foundry, they might look us up on Twitter. And if they can't find a Twitter, maybe that's a red flag for them. And they can't find a Facebook thing, maybe that's a red flag. And they can't find a website. Okay, maybe this podcast isn't real. So it is important to have those ways for people to get a hold of you and know that you're real and you exist and that people know who you are.
Shout out to Luke. He was our moderator in the podcast. He created, first he sent a really, really classy email introducing himself and connecting with us. Right when it was over, he sent Twitters out, encouraging everybody with our podcast, hashtagging all of us and getting people involved. And instantly, I already liked him and thought he was awesome, but just that extra level of class made me like, oh, I really want to collaborate with him. Oh, this is really serious. And all it was just courtesy, right? He's just a very courteous and thoughtful person, wanted to say our names right, asked what our pronouns were, and I thought, wow, just basic courtesy goes such a long way in building your name and your reputation.
Absolutely. All right, we got 1 minute left. I don't see any more questions, but I see a lot of comments. So I just want to say a huge thank you for your engagements. Those of you that joined the Sizzle class last night know how much we love the engagements. And we've got a couple of offers for do cross promotion. So yeah, hit us up on our Discord. That's the best place to find us.
You can this is the time. You can find us on the Discord. We have a website, semisagesofthepages.com. We're on the Twitter. We're on the Facebook. You can email us, semisages@gmail.com. If you like this podcast. Oh, wait, no, not that last one.
I was wondering if you were going to do that. 5 stars. Tell your friends.
Like this video. Give it I don't know the YouTube lingo. Like, what
yes, give it a thumbs up.
But give us a thumbs up.
Like and subscribe. It's not our channel, but I guess you can like and subscribe.
Yeah.
We're practicing. We're not good at this part, so we're practicing.
Buy merchandise for Flights of Foundry, because this was a free conference, so support us.
This is their fun.
And thank you all so much for listening, and this has been absolutely a wonderful experience for us.
Thank you, Flights of Foundry. Thank you, everybody we've met.
Thank you.
All the learning's amazing.
Yeah, it's been incredible. So huge thank you. Everybody get some sleep tonight because it's been a crazy weekend.